In the spirit of interviewing fabulous women, today I have somebody I'm very excited to interview, Tamara Lush, who is a cozy mystery writer in her 50s.
That is correct. I am a cozy mystery writer. I also write romance, and I'm 53 as of last month.
Oh my gosh, happy belated.
Thank you. Yeah, 53. It's been a journey. And so lately I have been writing mysteries about midlife women.
That is so interesting. So tell us why you started writing mysteries, but maybe give us also a little bit of backstory as to what you used to do before and how you transitioned.
Sure. I actually used to be a journalist. I was with the Associated Press here in Florida, and I covered a lot of breaking news. I covered, executions and mass shootings and like every terrible thing that you would read about in Florida. I covered it, Trayvon Martin,
Oh my
um,
goodness.
the Pulse shooting, the Parkland shooting, alligators, politics, you name it. And I decided in about 2014 that I wanted to write something that ended happily. And I'd
Mm.
always loved the romance genre. So I wrote a romance novel. And then I wrote a bunch more romance novels and thought, I think I can do this full time. And then I kind of waffled back and forth and was like, no, I don't want to leave journalism. I love it. Everybody needs journalists. And then the pandemic hit, and I was really sick of covering the pandemic, politics, I won't say anymore, but you can imagine just everything. And I quit and decided to be a full-time fiction writer. And it's been 3 years since I quit. And at a certain point, I decided that I wanted to try writing a mystery novel because that was the other genre that I loved. I especially love the cozy mystery genre, which is kind of a little bit of like a hybrid between romance and mystery, because there usually is a strong romantic subplot in those books. And the cozy mystery, in case your viewers don't know, is really a mystery, kind of like Agatha Christie or Murder She Wrote or Only Murders in the Building. That's my latest favorite, is Only Murders in the Building. Knives Out is another one. That's a good cozy movie.
Mhm.
Usually it's not as much gore and violence and no, overt sex. That those are usually kind of the hallmarks. They're more lighthearted mysteries. I like to say that my books are kind of like Carl Hyacins, but without the political cynicism.
Oh my goodness,
So
that's so interesting.
it's super fun. They're so much fun to write. They're like a puzzle to write. It's like a whodunit. But in my current series, the heroine is 47 and all of her friends are in their late 40s and 50s. And they're all midlife women. They're all going through perimenopause. They're all dealing with all of the symptoms of perimenopause. And all of them also come into some sort of psychic power at midlife. They live in a town that's like Casadega. Similar, Casadega is a town in Florida that's known as the psychic capital of the
Hmm.
world.
Hmm.
And so they live in a town similar to that, and they have psychic powers at midlife. And I love the idea of a series and a genre. I can talk a little bit about the genre in a minute, but I love the idea of a series kind of making midlife women their own heroines, and the response has been incredible. Just women who are in, Gen X and boomers who are all saying, oh, I remember these songs and I remember, I feel this way. It's really been amazing sort of connecting sort of with people over that, because I think so much it's overlooked.
What is the name of your latest book? The one you were just mentioning.
The latest book is I Want Your Hex. All of them have sort of funny titles with the play on the word hex as a pun in the
Hmm.
title. The first one is called Eat, Pray, Hex.
And these
And
are the ones about the midlife women, which
yes,
sounds
it's called the
fabulous.
Crescent Moon Mystery Series. There's kind of a new, I publish these myself. I have a publisher for some of my books,
Hmm.
but I indie publish these. And there's kind of a new indie driven genre now called paranormal women's fiction. And it's usually about women in midlife finding their paranormal powers and solving crimes and doing fun stuff and having romance and living their best lives. And I love that. Like, I wanted to, I'm not writing about myself. The characters aren't me, but I do feel like since quitting my job and sort of embracing my 50s, I quit
Hmm.
a month after I turned 50, actually. I I feel like I have kind of gained these weird superpowers of actual joy. Like joy is a superpower, right? Like not a
I
lot of
agree.
people have
Oh
them.
my gosh, no. Just today published something on Instagram, which was a little bit about that. Like we all have struggles. We all have really bad things happen to us and we all have really good things happen to us, but it's in how you deal with it in the end that sparks that inner joy, I think. So good for you
Totally.
for pursuing your passion.
Thanks. And at midlife, I feel like we can let go of a lot of things and sort of embrace our true selves. I know it sounds kind of cliche and kind of cheesy, but that's kind of the underlying message of my books. And it's really, I'm just so gratified that it's resonating with readers. It's so much fun.
I have a question about the self-publishing part because I publish
Yeah.
books and only one. I've only self-published one, usually with traditional trade publishers. And what I liked about that is that I got an advance, and then the book, of course, you wanted to sell, but if it doesn't, at least you have your advance. And with the self-publishing, the one that I did was I don't really write fiction. Written a little bit and published a little bit, but I'm more passionate about nonfiction in my personal case. I do enjoy reading, though, any kind of fiction. But I wrote that mainly so I could give the book away because I wanted to put it on Amazon and just make it as cheap as possible so everybody could access it. What is your experience with self-publishing in that sense?
I've had a great experience with self-publishing. There's a real, especially I had self-published some romance. I have a traditional publisher for some of my mysteries and some of my romance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but especially in the romance and cozy mystery genre, there are a lot of trailblazing women and men who
Mm-hmm.
have really made a lot of money and published and really reached a lot of people in those specific genres. So there's kind of a tried and true path of like how to
Mm-hmm.
publish your book, how to promote your book, how to sell your book, how, and what you need to do to keep those sales up, which includes, ads and promo and marketing. I've had to learn a lot about that because I was a reporter. I never owned my own business. I always got a paycheck and I just wrote my news stories and that was it. So now it's more like I'm a small business person.
Mm-hmm.
So I have
Mm-hmm.
to deal with ads and stuff. But really, with romance, especially, there is a definite, well trod path for how to publish a book. And so it's been a really good experience because I've benefited from the knowledge of a lot of people who went before me on this.
I think it's like only authors care whether other people's books are self-published or not. It's like I look at that when I buy a book. I'm like, who published this? But
Right.
I think regular readers don't care. Like they're not, who is this publisher? And they just, do I like the book or do I not like the book? I'm going to read more or not.
Yeah, I think that's totally the case. I think when a reader finds an author they like, and honestly, especially with genre fiction now, I think it's so common for an author to have some books published traditionally and some books published independently. Personally, the paranormal stuff will be published indie, and then my mysteries that are, contemporary,
Mhm.
modern mysteries, at this point, those are published, with a traditional publisher.
Right. Are all your characters midlifers or it's just this particular series?
Well, the main characters, it's just this particular series. Although in my other published series, the heroine is about 30, 32, and there's a few other characters that are older. Um, her father character is a boomer, and he's really popular. So I do write older characters in those books.
Is there a reason for that? Is it because you know that person better than you would know a Gen Zer? Like I have kids, so maybe it would be, not easier, but at least I'd be like, oh, this is what they're doing now, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have kids. I have a book coming out in March that has a heroine who's 25. And some of my romances are with younger people, like
I like that.
18.
I like
So
that.
I have a range of people.
That's
I
great.
it's fun to write. But in romance, it's harder. In romance, it's definitely seems more popular to write younger characters.
Hmm.
And I did feel a little bit like I was kind of aging out.
Mm.
A lot of
Mhm.
my readers are really young and I love them.
Mhm.
But it also dawned on me that like when I was dating, when I was 20, I'm 53. So when I was 24, 25, when I was 26, I'd already bought a house and I
Mhm.
already had a career. And like people, that's not the
No.
experience of people now, you know? And I didn't date with an app. And I don't know how many young women now know what it's like to go to a bar and see a guy across the bar and make eye contact and flirt and have a drink. I don't know how common that is. So my experience in meeting men to date
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
so different. It's from another era. So I'm not sure in writing certain kinds of romance how effective I am, honestly. It's hard. It's
Right.
really
Well, it
hard.
would be maybe immersing yourself and actually hanging out with young people
Right.
and doing some research as you used to
Exactly.
do when you were
Yeah.
actively a journalist, right? Is
Yeah.
there anything like when you think back to your journalism career? Because I know that a lot of people who have quote unquote second acts, like in now I'm doing what I really love, but it sounds like you really loved journalism as well. So thankfully you weren't like in this job that you hated, and then finally you're free to do what you want. Is there anything you miss from the journalism days?
Oh gosh, I miss so much. I mean,
Oh,
I
man.
miss the way journalism used to be.
Mm.
You know, I started in journalism in 1992, and I was really fortunate for 7, 8 years to work at this then St. Petersburg Times. I was the
You were very
statewide.
young. How old? In your
No,
early 20s?
well, I actually went to this. I worked for some newspapers up in New England first. So, I was 29 when I came to the Times and came to Florida from New England. And, I was at a great newspaper at a time when newspapers weren't suffering like they are now. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I had an expense account. We had profit sharing. We had cost of living increases. We had editors. We had stories that would run, you know, many thousands of words over multiple days. Like it was a
Right.
different era. And I missed that. I missed that part of journalism. I missed the newsroom. But here's the thing, when you cover a lot of breaking news and when you cover a lot of difficult news,
Mm.
it takes a lot out of your soul. And I only discovered this later, but I discovered that the thing that I was really good at, which was, parachuting into a breaking news situation and talking to people about terrible things,
Hmm.
was the one thing that was terrible for my mental health.
Hmm.
Like the thing that I'm best at in the world is also the thing that hurts me a lot. And so I had to make a compromise and just say, like, I either stay with that and probably die an early death of some way, or I get out of it and do something that brings me joy that maybe I'm not as good at.
Right.
So
Well, maybe you are good at it because
I,
I mean, obviously you're selling books and you're writing them and people are buying them and reading them. So,
I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I
yeah,
don't want to say that I'm as good, but it takes
I
a
think
while.
actually, I think that's really good because to this day, at 60 years old, I still, after a whole lifetime of working for myself and freelancing and doing different things, I still doubt myself. And I think it's kind of healthy because if I thought I was really good at anything, maybe I would stop just giving it my best. I don't like to say I'm good at something, but I have experience with it. Or
Yes,
in this very fast-paced, ever-changing world, one thing that I do like about it is that it keeps me always engaged because there's no way to be making a living as I do on social media and not be on the latest trends or not know what's going on or learning. I just signed up to a new editing course so I edit my own videos and I want to learn new editing techniques and stuff like that. But also my lifetime of like I wasn't covering breaking news like you. I was doing more laid back interviews, like this. But of course they were in a written format and I didn't have the luxury of recording it and being able to listen to it later. I didn't like to record because I was doing it twice, so I would type it out as I was speaking on the phone.
I did that
And
too.
oh my God, it's a choice, obviously, because a lot of people will record it or ask
Yep.
permission to record it, and then I just hammered it out and whatever I made of my notes. And then you had the fact checkers, but sometimes you did get something wrong, and that was that. And now you could call me and say, "Hey, that's wrong what you wrote on the blog," and oh, I'll correct it. But in the
Right.
newspaper, of course, there was the next day or the next week, there were all these
Oh,
mistakes, and so I think that some of the things I like that have changed with communication. Like I basically think, and maybe it's a little bit your case, that I've always done the same thing, communicate, because I used to write books and then I became a journalist after that. And then I started making a living on social media and with my website. But for you, you were also communicating, and now you were communicating facts, and now you're communicating fiction, but you're blending reality into fiction. So in some way, you're distilling it and putting it out there through your lens of a 53-year-old woman.
Yes. And I think that being a journalist, and probably you found this too, it gives you kind of a discipline, kind of a framework for how you do your work. And it's like, okay, yesterday wasn't great, but we'll try it again tomorrow. And there are more words tomorrow.
Oh my
So there's another chance. Like there's always another chance. And that's kind of the spirit I take the books. Like not every book will be my absolute best, but I try. And there are more words. We try again, keeping to try, like living your life so that you can try again. And that, like you said, you learn to do new things. I think that that's sort of the most exciting part of not having a full-time day job is that
God.
I can explore. Like I'm taking a TikTok course right now. And
So
it's like,
glad to hear you say that.
like I'm learning like how to do that and how to, well, I'm really excited because now, and now I can talk about when I met you at Tombolo.
Ah,
I
that's
couldn't talk about
a
this.
bookstore in
Yes,
St. Pete,
bookstore in
Tombow
St.
Books.
Pete. I couldn't talk about it then, but now I can. So I have a book coming out in March, and this is really exciting. So it's with a publisher. It's a mystery. It's like a rom-com cozy mystery.
Hmm.
So, but the publisher is Eighth Note Press, who's owned by TikTok. Like they are
Mm.
owned by TikTok. So I'm super excited. I can't wait to like bring my mysteries to like a whole new crowd. So I'm kind of learning about all of that and I'm kind of really trying to double down on TikTok.
You know what I really love is that you're actually doing that because most, I don't want to say older people, but even people my age that I see they're slamming TikTok and ChatGPT. Like I use ChatGPT a lot. I feel that technology is there. We're not going to fight it. So why not lean into it the best way possible? And to hear someone that is not 20 say leaning into TikTok, I want to learn more is so wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I try to TikTok every day about my
Hmm.
books.
Hmm.
It's kind of a balance. Like I'm trying to figure out this balance of like how much do I want to show myself versus my books. I know there are different accounts, and as it stands, I actually have two different TikTok accounts. One is sort of a general book for all of my books, and one is very focused on mysteries. Um, so I'm trying to sort that out. But yeah, I try to do different things. It doesn't all work, but you know
You
what?
gotta try. What is your TikTok account?
My TikTok account, the main one is the Book Lush,
The Book Lush. That's the one I'm
the Book
following
Lush,
for
and
sure.
yeah, and that's my same Instagram handle. Only
Hmm.
there's periods in between the and Book
Okay, so
Lush,
on Instagram, both of them we can TikTok and
the Book
Instagram we
Lush.
can
Yeah,
find as the Book
mhm.
Lush,
Yeah,
and that is great because that is I just find it so fascinating that you're honestly leaning into it, and you might think that that's normal and obvious, like I think it is because that's
mhm.
how I operate in the world, but most people don't, and I have people in their 40s tell me they're too old to learn social media. And I'm like,
Yeah.
do you understand? I'm 20 years older than you and I'm doing it. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to figure out like where it fits. Like I know that I'm not going to dance. Like I can't
Hmm.
dance. I don't dance. I don't dance in my regular like things that you don't do in your regular life. But there are certain things like and I think that I've seen this also in like sort of the cozy mystery world because a lot of people who write cozy mysteries are older women
Hmm.
and a lot of them say I'd like to do it, but I don't know where to begin. And I think that it's really interesting, especially with book talk, is that,
Mm.
I think everybody thinks book talk is just, Colleen Hoover and Sarah J. Maas and all of the sort of big blockbusters. Well, I actually, a lot of us actually just do little snippets of like little inspiration from our books, like photos, like here's an aesthetic video of my book. And just
Mm.
letting viewers see, like, you don't have to be on camera. There are many ways to promote yourself and to sort of connect. Some of the videos I do are just making tea. Like, I just make my tea and I put up like a little like funny little things about my book. And people love that. It's like they like to look at something pretty and they want to have be entertained. And my cozy mysteries have a lot of humor. So I can say, like my midlife heroine. She's on a haunted swamp walk with a silver fox,
Mm.
and then someone turns up unalive. What do they do? Like fun stuff.
But
So
again,
anyway,
you're taking advantage of it,
yes,
which is
it's fun.
wonderful. How many books have you written and published up until now? And what I forgot to ask you at what age you started actually writing. You mentioned you were still a journalist, but
Yes, I started at 44. I
so it
started at
took you
44.
6 years of balancing
Yes.
both things.
Yes. Yes. It took me 6 years. I got a publisher and an agent pretty quickly for my romances. And then I indie published some romance. So it took me a while to kind of get my footing, but almost immediately I realized that I wanted to write fiction full time, but it
Mm.
took me a while to put everything in place so that I could quit,
And when you
between
say
savings.
there, I was going to say that. When you say putting into place, what do you mean? Because I'm the kind of person who'll just jump into a pool and I won't look. Well, not that I won't look whether it has water in it or not, but I've been a risk taker most of my life. And I mean, being a lifetime
Yeah.
freelancer, I can say that I don't know what having a cushy paycheck is every month
Right.
or not cushy, but that was my choice.
Right.
And to this day, I am like, I love, and I said this once and I will never say it the same way again, but I prefer the uncertainty of like the daily uncertainty, but of endless possibility. I have always preferred that from 18 years old or 19 when I started working, and to the certainty of a smaller paycheck, that was it. That was to me that I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And I tried and it just wasn't me. And so I did not wait for having savings. I did not, like, I've always just done it. And it's not for the faint of heart, because of course there's the months where you're like, am I going to have to eat my dog for dinner? Or, and then I'm going to look for a job. And then of course I don't want it. So next month is great and blah, blah. But for you, what did that mean? Because I know a lot of people are scared of of quitting a job.
Yes, I am not a risk taker, or I wasn't a risk taker. I had always had a staff job at a
Oh,
newspaper.
goodness.
Like I did not particularly want to be a small business owner. Like it was never in my DNA to be like, yes, someday I want to own my own business. No, it was not like that. I had been at the AP for 13 years actually, and been at the Times for 7 years before that. And prior to that, other newspapers. So I had always had staff job, benefits, health insurance. And, of
Mm-hmm.
course, so for 6 years, we saved. We had fortunately bought like a very small house for a very good price. We paid off our mortgage. We saved. We got a financial planner who told us what we needed to do and where we were in that. And there was a lot of panic, like massive amounts of panic on my part, like just the like the month before I quit was like the worst month of my life. But I will tell you, so it was. I'm going to paint you this picture. It was December of 2020. There were no vaccines. Everyone was completely miserable. I had been covering COVID all year, plus the election, parts of the election. Um, and it was Christmas Eve, and I had a super intense pain in my side, like nothing I had ever experienced before. And I went to the hospital, and I was vegan at the time. And I
Mm.
went to the hospital and they did x-rays, and I had to go to the hospital alone. It was a total nightmare.
Oh my
And the
God.
doctor looked at me and was like, yeah, it's your gallbladder. And I'm like, but I'm vegan. And he was like, whatever, like, so what? It doesn't matter. Your gallbladder doesn't care. And I ended up spending 4 nights in the hospital over Christmas in 2020, and my grandmother had died of gallbladder cancer. And so I was like, if I get through this without, and I had, oh, and the other layer upon this is 2020 and the stress of my job had exacerbated a deep, deep rooted health anxiety in me. Like,
Mm.
not just like I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac, like major, like almost to the point of OCD.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in therapy for it at that time. And so I was like, I was in the hospital bed and I'm like, if I get out of this without cancer or any problems, I am quitting my job. This is my sign. The gallbladder, whether you believe it or not, I don't know if I do, but in traditional Chinese medicine, the gallbladder is where you store your anger.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Mm-hmm.
fine, had the gallbladder taken out, quit my job.
Oh my goodness, that's a great story. I'm
I know.
sorry you went through it, but
Sorry about the gallbladder, but yeah, no, I just knew that my body could not tolerate more of it and my soul could not. And so it was really stressful. I cried when we did the Zoom call, we were still doing Zoom calls, and um everybody at the AP came and, said goodbye on a Zoom call, and I was terrified and sad. And then I got up the next day and wrote my words and took a walk and was like, it's going to be okay. And it has been. Like, I have health insurance. I'm making some money. I don't know. My life is really good. Like, taking the leap is not always a bad thing.
it isn't. It isn't. And I mean, I've taken many leaps and not all of them landed well, but I do identify not maybe with the like I am a hypochondriac. So when you said that thing about your health, it's always like whenever I go to the doctor and I get a clear or something, or I had a close brush with colon cancer, then I was like, every time I have a checkup, I'm like, oh my God, I feel a renewed joy and wanting to
Yes,
do things. And then until the next scare,
totally.
or now with the kids, with my kids, and
Yep.
but at the same time, what you're saying, I remember very short period, it was only 4 months. I did a maternity leave cover for this online magazine for Latina or Hispanic moms. And I was the editor online, and we had to post 20 articles a day. And we had to receive pitches from the writers during the day as the day progressed. But the first news of the morning at 7 in the morning or at 8, it had to be the worst case scenario, like someone stabbed a mom and took the baby out and stuff like that. I'm not kidding. That's a real story that we didn't, of course, cover it as in, oh, breaking news, but you had to scour the internet for that stuff and comment about it, right? Those 4 months, speaking to the physical part of that, I don't know how I survived that, because that was my daily breakfast. It's like,
Mm,
this is the daily breakfast, is these horrible, horrible pieces of news that
right,
have to come out first. And then came the gossip and the, softer stuff that I
right.
had to get through, plus the grueling being online. Because when you're covering something, you have a
Yes.
deadline,
Yep.
like for something for the AP, but back then it wasn't like, but you have to have it in 15 minutes and published, and then you have to do
Right.
another one. So I remember that when I finished that, first of all, I got like tennis elbow from being on the computer, I don't know how many hours a day, every day. And secondly, is that all that bad stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, my kids, like another piece of news was that somebody backed out and hit a mother and her kids and they were all dead. And anyway, of course I was having nightmares about that. And I was like, goodness gracious, I'm never doing this again. Like, it gave me
Right.
a lot of experience
Right.
online, but it was terrible. So I'm so glad you got out of that, because I mean,
Yeah,
even as a consumer of news, I've had to reduce it so much since
totally.
those elections, since the Pulse
Yep.
shooting. Like, when things hit so close, and even as
Yes.
again as a consumer, I can't deal with it. I can't even imagine covering it. So I am so glad you're doing what you prefer,
Thanks.
because
Thanks.
I know
Yeah,
you love that. But
yeah. I mean, I miss the people in journalism. They, I mean,
yeah.
they're
Hmm.
witty, they're smart, like they're
Hmm.
fun people to work with.
But you can have drinks with them. I mean, there's
Right.
nothing
Right.
like you can.
Exactly. Exactly. And the newsroom of today is different than the newsroom of old. But yeah, I mean, it just takes so much out of you. And I
Yeah,
consider myself a really strong person. And I was like, but why do I have to keep being strong for this? Like what I wanted at 22 as a journalist is not what I wanted at 50.
exactly.
Like we
Exactly.
change. We're not locked into the same thing our entire life. And I would encourage anybody who to really question that premise that we are.
I have a question for you. Writing off of that is, when, like, what you're doing now, do you think this is forever? Like, this is what you're going to do until the end of time? Or do you feel like, for myself, I'm going to give you an example, is that 1 year ago, I signed up for improv theater classes, and I'm still going, and now I'm going to take acting classes. If anybody had told me that I was going to do that a month before I actually enrolled, I would have said no. I'm never going to do that. So when people ask me, do I see myself, what do I see myself doing? Usually I say, I don't know, because things that I've done in my life have sometimes been unexpected. Like I didn't see myself doing that. So,
Yeah, I do actually. That was sort of part of the appeal of writing books and especially cozy mysteries.
hmm
Um, Cozy mysteries as a genre is mostly are written about women and the protagonists are women and usually in many ways the protagonists are older women. It's really the one genre where older women are not diminished in any way.
mm.
It's like it's the genre where everyone kind of dismisses the older lady, but then she like solves all these crimes, and it's like, oh, like she can sort of move around undetected and gather information and clues, and she puts it all together. It's kind of the one genre where it's like older women are celebrated, and I was like, that's what I want to do from now until whenever. So
Well,
I,
yeah.
I think that that's what I want. I'm pretty certain. I don't have anything else that, unless I absolutely have to get another job, which I guess is possible. Probably not. I mean,
Hoping
I can't,
not.
probably not,
Hoping you don't
but
need to.
I mean, um, I I probably am not employable in journalism anymore because I've been a little outspoken online about a few things. So, probably most journalism outlets probably wouldn't employ me because I'm not super, and that was the other thing is that I wanted to be able to speak my mind about certain things and it was hard not to.
Hmm.
So I'm enjoying that part too. So I don't think I would go back to journalism.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And for anybody considering, because I know a lot of people have this idea that they could write a book, like a lot of people say it. I've heard it so many times, but very few people actually sit and write that book or anything else for that matter. What would you say to someone who really, really wants to, or is even writing in the closet and is scared to take the step of maybe not even leaving their job, but just actually, writing fiction and putting it out there? What would you tell them? An
Yeah. I
older
mean,
person, like in their
right. I mean,
40s.
most fiction writers do have day jobs. Like that's the reality. I would encourage them to find a group in their community. For mystery writers, Sisters in Crime is a great group. Like
Mm.
there's a group. There's Sisters in Crime, Gulf Coast Sisters in Crime.
And
So
where
it
would you
kind
find these people on
of
Facebook
online.
or?
Online, I would look for Sisters in Crime. That's a website, and it's an organization, a
Mm.
national organization. But they have another one down in South Florida, Mystery Writers of America. Um, when I first started out, Romance Writers of America also had a great. They had both local and national groups, and they had a big convention every year that was super fun to go to. And I think if you kind of go to one of those sorts of writing conventions,
Hmm.
it kind of jump starts meeting people and forming groups amongst yourselves. But I would look for sometimes a lot of cities have writing groups or meetups, writing meetups. I would consider that. But if you're writing genre fiction, I would try to find your people who are writing that thing because they understand what you're doing. And I think that that's really important.
I agree. I think it's like, I think it's easier when you say you're a writer, I think most people understand what that means or you're an author. But for example, for me that I say, like, what do you do? Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start at this point in my life. I just say I'm a writer and keep it at that, or I work in social media and keep it vague. But I was recently at a conference in Vegas where I was speaking, and it was such a relief to be around people where I didn't have to explain what I did. And they were like, "Oh, you're an influencer." And I had it on my badge, and that's it. I didn't have to say anything. They weren't
Right,
like,
right,
"What does that mean?" And what, but you're too old or whatever. No, they
right.
like there were brands, there were PRs, and I just
Nice.
love those conferences because it reminded me like throughout the years and before COVID, I would go to two or three a year, and that feeling of being with people who completely and utterly understand what you do without having to explain it is so
Yes.
good.
Yeah,
And
it feels so good.
you don't feel like a weirdo. Like in real life, I
Yeah,
honestly have a hard time, and I don't care. Like at this point, I don't
right.
care what people think, but it's more like I'm not going to be able to talk about it at the same level as, for example, it's not the same, even though I write, but I don't write cozy mystery. So you and I can't have the conversation you would have with an author who writes the same kind of books that you do. You know?
Exactly. And I think especially in with romance, because romance, it's really a lot of romance. I've known a lot of romance writers who go to more general groups, general writing groups, and there might be men there, or older men or younger men who are like, they diminish the genre.
Oh,
They don't think that romance is, they think it's fluffy or, kind of stupid. And nothing could be further from the truth. But it's easier, especially when you're starting out, to have people who are super supportive and who love the thing that you're doing.
I agree. And on the heels of what you just said, I've seen a lot of people complain that their family and friends don't read their books or don't watch their reels or whatever it is. I am of the opinion that family and friends are not your audience. That's what I think. What do you think?
They are not my audience, and my husband has not read my books. Um,
Well,
I mean, so and I'll explain that. My
yeah.
husband is from Italy.
Hmm.
English is his second language. He speaks it very well. He writes
Hmm.
well, but it's not like reading in another language is not pleasurable to him.
Hmm.
Like it is like I read in English, it's pleasurable to me. It's like breathing. It's not like that. I'm sure you speak
Hmm.
Spanish.
Hmm.
You're fluent in both, but I think
Hmm.
that he came to this country a little later. So it's
Hmm.
like, I just don't think it's as pleasurable. And honestly, he's not my target audience. Like his
Correct.
opinion, while it's very nice he's read some things, but
Hmm.
it's not necessary for me to go on to have his opinion. Like I don't need his validation to do what I do. Like what I do is my job. I love it. I love to create and I love to write, but my love for him is separate from that.
I love
That's
that
how
you're
I see it.
saying that. And well, obviously you knew my husband before you knew me, and Philippe Diederich, he was a photojournalist before he was an author. And when he met me, I was a published author and he was not. But my books were in Spanish then. And I started giving him the books, and first of all, they're nonfiction. He's not interested in women's issues. He doesn't read Spanish, like he speaks it, but he doesn't, the same thing. So while I do value his opinion because he's also a writer and sometimes he reads my stuff and edits it, or I'll read his and edit it, there comes a point where we both have so much stuff going on that I have not read his latest book that is out and published and everything. And some people might be shocked by that, but it's other books I've read because there was Spanish in them. And I would correct the Spanish because even the of course, as we know, the copy editors possibly didn't know Spanish. And so I made sure that was okay. But there comes a point where, and it's funny because he told me once, and it was like that he didn't know that in the past when he was younger, and I think that's true for myself as well, is that he would be like, oh my gosh, my mother doesn't like what I wrote. And then he's like, his mother is a psychiatrist and she's a doctor, like who made her the, you know, the person who knowledgeable on writing, on quality of
Right.
writing. No. But his
Right.
father was a journalist, so maybe he could get his opinion. So it's we don't need family and friends to come to our presentations or this or that. I completely agree. But I'm so glad to find somebody else who actually agrees too.
No, I just don't. That's not how I get I mean, I obviously I get validation from him in other ways, but that
Yeah.
like I was a writer long before I met him.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I don't I just don't need his approval for that. Like I don't
What does
need
he do? If we can,
he fixes motorcycles.
so it's completely
Completely
different,
different. Right,
which is
right, right.
very interesting.
Like and sometimes I'll add like when I was writing romance, more
Yeah.
romance, I would ask him, this is funny. I asked
Okay.
him the first time I asked him, I was like, well, what should my hero do to prove his love to the heroine? And he was like, I was like, they're on a beach and it's a romantic scene. And my husband thought about it for a while and he was like, well, he could punch a barracuda in the face. I'm like, why? What? What? What does that even mean? Like, why would he do that? Like, so that's when I sort of maybe
Oh,
stopped
goodness.
asking my husband for plot points.
Well, it just makes a lot of sense though. It's I don't, I will ask another person who does what I do for feedback on what I do, usually, unless I want a complete outsider's opinion on something, but it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Like I'm also lucky that my dad is a writer and my grandfather was a writer and family of writers, publishers. And so I could, but there's also the fact that my father is a scholar and he doesn't understand like I mean he's had to put up, he's 85 and now he still teaches, he still writes his dictionaries, but and I run his Instagram, but there's a lot that he doesn't understand about what I do, and even the language. And
Right.
anyway, so it's just
Yeah.
like we really do have to validate ourselves, which I think also comes with age and wisdom, because it was really hard for me. Like when people ask me would I go back to my 20s, and I was doing some exciting things in my 20s, but no, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the person
No.
I was 5 years ago. Like even at 55, which you have not arrived there yet, I don't want to
Right.
be 55,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
prefer the person that I am today at 60, like way more, oh my goodness, I don't know, like it's not like I don't care about stuff, but I've become more like don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely much more confident than when I started
Mhm.
in journalism in my 20s, like, and I think it's also I'm also in some ways like I'm much less competitive. Like I
Agreed.
feel like there's room for everybody. Like
Yeah.
there's no need to compete with, especially with other women. And I think that that
Yeah.
is hard when you're in your 20s and navigating the working world. And it's like these other women can, I think it's sort of the way work and society set up that we're supposed to compete with each other. And I don't want to compete with another woman. They're not my enemy. They're not my competition. You know, they're my
Yeah.
colleagues in my genre or whatever.
Yeah. You know what I don't miss about being super young is the arrogance I had. I wasn't even that young. Like in my 40s, I remember arguing with someone in a magazine over something I had submitted, and I was defending the undefendable. And to boot, I had a typo in my email. And I wrote gist of it with a J, but I
Oh
knew it was with, well, of course, the guy destroyed me. It was like he,
my God.
and I would never do that now. Now I would be like, oh, okay, let me take a look at it and see maybe
Right.
I'm wrong and maybe
Totally.
you're right. So learning as I've grown older is learning to admit that I might possibly be wrong. And just leading with that instead of no, my work is my work and it's perfect. And
Right.
even if there were mistakes, and I was wondering, where did I get that idea that you can't admit that you made a mistake?
Exactly. Exactly. That's progress when you can do that.
Now, when I think of that guy, I'm like, it's a very well-known magazine. I won't even say the
Oh,
name of it, but it was really embarrassing.
oh no.
I wonder, of course, the guy probably forgot, doesn't, I can't even remember his name, but it was like, oh my God, oh, oof.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
gee, so how many books have you published? Where can people find them?
I've
And
published 25 books over two genres, mostly romance, but eight cozy mysteries, about to be nine.
mhm.
And you can find all of my books. I actually put them under one website, Tara. I write my mysteries under Tara Lush, Tara.
Mhm.
My romances are under Tamara Lush, but you can find them at taralush.com.
Again, the date of the publication of your next book and the title and
It is March 26th, and it's called Gator Queen. It's about an alligator trapper who comes home to Florida to take over her father's alligator trapping business. And then a rival gator trapper turns up dead. And she
mm.
and a hot criminology professor sleuth the crime.
That sounds very, very good. And that's the one that's
Thanks.
published by TikTok,
Eighth Note Press.
ultimately.
Yes. Yeah. Eighth Note Press TikTok.
Congrats. I'm so
ByteDance. Thanks.
excited.
Thanks.
Please
Thanks. Thanks.
keep me in the loop and
I will.
yeah, that's
Thanks.
great. I am
Thank
so
you.
inspired. I'm not gonna go
Thanks.
write cozy mysteries, but I'm gonna go read them. And I hope
Good.
that anybody, any woman, any man, any person that is inspired, no matter how young or older they are, that they will do what you did and take the leap.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.